G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of The Inner City Hermit. I feel like this is weird introducing you, but we've been thinking about this for a while because the first podcast we did together was a Japan podcast, and that happened about a year ago when the podcast was in the
Was that really a year ago?
It was a year ago, yeah. Wild, hey. And I have improved my skills since then because you did have a bit of a go at me for talking over you a fair bit, and rewatching it, I did talk over you a fair bit. But I thought we'd get you on with the pubs and stuff opening, talk a bit of pub nutrition. We have Kiah Paetz, the Plant Based Dietitian. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for having me on in my own home.
That's okay. I figured, it was a long trek for you to get to the living room of our apartment. But I'm very, very happy you're here. I love the last podcast we did, so I'm very excited to get you on again and chat about things that you know a lot about.
Yeah, nutrition.
Fucking nutrition. Let's get into it. But the main reason we thought about this was with pubs opening again, and obviously the audience that I sort of have with the potty is predominantly blokes who enjoy beer. Me being one of those blokes who enjoy beer, I thought we'd have a chat, a little bit of a chat about pub nutrition and what's the best go with pub nutrition. So, I guess for you, when you think of a pub, because obviously you don't really frequent pubs all that often.
Never.
Exactly. No, and I think that's when you think of a pub, Kiah Paetz, as a mid-20s woman, what sort of foods do you think of when you think of a pub?
Well, obviously there's a lot of I would call it standard Australian food.
Yeah.
You know, that we've always got like the steak and chips or the schnitzel or nachos.
Bloody palmy.
We were actually in a pub last night. Yeah, so I was at a pub last night in terms of just watching your soccer game.
Yeah.
We did have a little bit of a look-see what was on the menu. Had what did they have there? The carbonara, the steak and chips, the schnitzel, and nachos as well. So I kind of say that sort of stuff is probably a, typical thing you find in a pub, but to be honest, you'd probably know more than me about what you'd find in a pub.
Oh, definitely. I do frequent the old Bricky's laptop a fair few times. You don't know what the Bricky's laptop is? The pokies.
Oh, yeah.
And no, I think pre-vegan too. Pre-vegan, I was very much a staple pub sort of meal guy. Like I'd go there, palmies. And I think too the pricing of like the food, like for example, you go to a pub and it's I think like Logandale Tavern, which is where I've had a couple meals pre-vegan. This was back with the boys from school. It was like $12 schnitzel nights, where it's like for $12 you get a beer, chips and a schnitzel. And one of the biggest things is, to me, that's super cheap. And when you're looking for like something that's like affordable, that's a big meal to have quite cheap. And I guess the biggest thing, like thinking about pub food, is it's got a sort of a bad rap around it not being healthy, like everyone sort of associates. But do you think there are ways that just by really, I guess, analyzing the food, and it's not say like, oh, you have to have a salad, but are there sort of ways that you can make deep fried like schnitzels and stuff, sort of balance them out to make it a little bit healthier? Or just, because when you're taking in a lot of beer, like beer is very carb heavy, obviously. Like how do you manage a meal where it's not that good for you, but what can you do to it to make it a little bit?
Well, I guess firstly you'd be probably looking at the frequency. So if you're going to the pub, which let's say overall the meals aren't the healthiest thing we can be choosing. Like, we can get away with eating unhealthy food. And I'd always say, you got to have a little bit of balance in your diet. But if you're doing that and that's your kind of go-to meal every night of the week, or as like quite a number of times, so say maybe every second night, 3 times a week or so, that's going to come at a bit of a cost in terms of your health overall. So firstly, I would say the less frequent you can go to pubs, or to eat at pubs, would probably be a good option if you can. So, for example, most people like to go to the pub on a Friday night, Saturday,
yeah.
That's where they're hanging out with their mates. And the thing is, when you're eating and trying to eat healthy, you don't want to compromise those other areas of health, which is socializing as well. But say, for example, if you're going to the pub on, say, a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just by yourself, eating at a pub, drinking some beers, it's probably not the healthiest thing you could be doing. And that's where I'd say, okay, maybe you could just start off simply by trying to cook at home a little bit. And if you are someone that is not a great cook, because don't want to stereotype, but just based on my experience with clients, majority of the time it's a female that's doing the cooking. And we generally find that males aren't as involved in cooking as females are. And what that generally means as a result is a lot of males aren't as comfortable with cooking. So when you're not comfortable with cooking, you're less likely to cook at home and you're more likely to eat out. So kind of firstly comes back to getting yourself a little bit more confident with cooking to be able to cook at home. So whether that means starting to use a few like frozen meal options, could be like say there are some healthy choices when it comes to frozen meals.
Do you have what sort of brands?
Like Healthy Choices is a good brand. Lean Cuisine's not too bad, or the best that I generally go for is Super Nature.
Okay.
And their frozen meals, they can be a really good start. After that, I would say you could possibly look at fresh pre-prepared meals. So things like what's that one?
HelloFresh?
No, not HelloFresh. The one that's
like U-Foods?
U-Foods, yeah. U-Foods are really good because they're fresh, you get delivered to your door. They're not too expensive. To be honest, they're going to be probably expensive as a pub meal anyway.
Yeah.
And then kind of after, I'd say maybe starting to look at things like HelloFresh or Marley and Spoon, where you literally get a recipe card and all the ingredients delivered to you to be able to cook straight from. And that can be a really good start. HelloFresh, Marley and Spoon are pretty expensive. So if budget is part of your considerations, they always have those discount codes for when you're starting at the start, or like starting off.
You could just do a bit of a jump, just do free trials.
Yeah, free trial. Yeah, just do free trials, Marley and Spoon. There's so many new ones coming out now anyway. And, try do that at the start. And then once you're a little bit more confident with that, also remember that you're probably going to suck if you're not familiar with cooking the first few times. It just takes practice.
Do you find that with a lot of your clients, do you find that do you find that they are quite honest that it is like a comfort thing? Like they feel like they're not good at it, so they choose not to do it? Or?
Yeah. And they're less likely to experiment with different things.
Yeah, okay.
And like the biggest thing is it comes from practice. I guess the thing I'd always ask is, where did you learn to cook from?
Mum.
Yeah.
Oh, and you.
And me, thank you. Yeah. But the same, like I learned a lot of the basics from my mum. Yeah. And if we think about, say socioeconomic status is a good example. If you're like, we know that lower socioeconomic status is linked with higher intake of discretionary items, which is more processed food, junk food. Yeah. Say, for example, you come from a family where you get brought up on a lot of takeaway foods, on a lot of Hungry Jack's, Macca's. You as a person are so much less likely to cook from scratch because you've never been brought up to learn how to cook. And so it's kind of just like this compounding intergenerational thing where you're not taught and therefore you're less likely. And we don't really learn cooking at school. Like I didn't really have cooking at my school. Like we had, I think, one or two lessons on it and they weren't too great. And then when you're in high school, you can do it as a subject, but most people don't.
I did it. Just so you
did it.
Just throwing
Congrats.
it out there.
My mum was like, you're not doing it. You can learn this at home. So I guess,
fair.
and like, look, I was lucky. My mum taught me how to cook. But, and that's the thing as well, when you're an adult and trying to learn things for yourself, like, generally it's hard to do things and it's hard to force yourself to get better at things that you feel like you're bad at. And then that kind of self-efficacy, which is, you well or how good you think you are, is going to be, a little bit battled. Or you're not going to feel that good about yourself if you've made something and then it doesn't turn out the way you want it. So it's a process. You can also consider doing cooking classes and whatnot. Heaps of YouTube videos out these days as well. But I would say that would be kind of a good pathway. And then eventually, once you've got a few maybe HelloFresh meals under your belt that you're comfortable with, then you can just go buy those ingredients from Woolworths and Coles, and it makes it a little bit cheaper. Yeah. And even that is what I would say is a good start if you're someone and you're finding you're going to the pub frequently, or even like going to Macca's and Hungry Jack's and things like that really frequently, is just trying to cook more at home. We know that cooking at home, cooking from scratch is so much like healthier or better for your health. And that would always be kind of a really good start in just trying to reduce that frequency of times that you're essentially going out to the pub more so purely by yourself.
Yeah. So Yeah, do you like, so with those, I think a lot of people sort of think about the idea of like a pub meal, like, you know, those sort of meals, like a steak and stuff like that, is they are sort of a healthy alternative to those fast foods. Are they still, would you still consider them a healthy alternative to those fast foods?
Yes, I would probably as well.
Yeah.
Like, look, it's a continuum. So, you know, when we think about Macca's, Hungry Jack's, KFC, they are generally very, very highly processed. We know they're very high in things like saturated fats and salt, which again, we know over time leads to a lot of chronic diseases. So things like diabetes, heart disease, high cholesterol, things like that. And the thing with food very much directly links to a lot of the chronic health conditions we find in Australia today. However, that's not really known about that much. And so a bit of an issue we find here is it's not necessarily, okay, you know, you're eating one Macca's burger, you're going to get a heart attack. It's more that continual over time. You know, the more you eat that stuff, the more you're going to get those chronic health conditions. So yes, if we compare, say, Macca's, Hungry Jack's to pub meals, yes, pub meals are definitely better. But then, of course, like with pub meals, there's a continuum. So the more deep fried stuff you get, generally the less optimal that is for human health. So say, for example, if we compare, say, chips, and you want something, again, that's providing you some sort of carbohydrates, giving you a bit of energy, you know, even going for a potato option is going to be like a better option than chips. So like going for your like mash or something like that. You know, steak and mash is going to be a bit better. Again, we know that too much red meat as well is linked with things like increasing your risk of bowel cancer. It's also very high in saturated fats, which are our bad fats, increase your cholesterol, increase your risk of heart disease. So I would generally say not having steak that frequently when you go to the pub. So opting for more chicken as well.
So going chicken's a better idea.
Chicken instead of steak, definitely. Okay. Also portion size, like say if you really like a steak, right? Generally like a portion size of steak is 65 grams.
So when you see things that are like the 400 grams, I was going to say that like that's
your week of meat.
That is a week.
That is a week of meat.
Fuck.
Yeah. So generally they say no more than about 500 grams of red meat a week.
Yeah.
We know that the less red meat that you have overall, generally the better.
Yeah.
So following a more Mediterranean style diet is the diet that we know has linked with the most positive health outcomes.
Does that include chicken? Is chicken Mediterranean?
It includes chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah, but with red meat, it includes red meat, but they generally recommend red meat to be eaten once or twice a month.
Shit,
so,
really?
Yeah, which is like really...
Fuck.
You know, I know, it's not that much. So like what I tend to tell clients, especially if I'm seeing them for like high cholesterol, is if you're having steak, rather eat it when you're out rather than having it home.
Just be careful with that.
Sorry.
It's just moving the table. No, keep going.
Rather having it, but also portion size is important. Yeah. So say, for example, you get the option of, do you want a 200 gram steak, a 300 gram steak, a 400 gram steak? Go for the 200 gram if you can. And also if it comes with a lot of fat on it, try to cut the fat off, because that's the bad fats, the saturated fats.
So with like that steak size, because I know, for example, me, and you know, I still very evidently remember my meat phase. Like I was the kind of guy that would eat a 300 gram steak, and so what would you say to sort of guys that would say, or girls, like I don't really mean to make this like male predominant, but if they have a 200 gram steak and chips and they're still hungry, what is the go? Because I think my argument to that would be, I'm still hungry. If I had 200 grams, I'm still... What would be the best way, without overdoing the steak, to make sure that I, for example, would still be full?
Well, I guess it would be looking at what else is on your plate. Okay. So that steak, that 200 gram steak, would be providing you ample amounts of protein. Yeah. And protein we know is very satiating, so it's keeping you full. The other thing that we know provides or really helps with fullness is something that we call fiber. So fiber is one of our 4 main macronutrients, the other being carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Yeah. And fiber essentially is undigested by the body, provides a lot of fuel for your gut bacteria, but it allows you to feel full. It provides a lot of a bulking effect. So we find a lot of fiber in primarily your vegetable-based foods. So when I say vegetables, I'm actually referring to salad and cooked vegetables. So things like any of your typical salads that you find at, you know, side salads, things like that, like with spinach, tomatoes, cucumber, or like your cooked veggies, like, you know, broccoli, carrots, green beans, things like that. So what I would probably recommend then is try it. A lot of people are generally surprised that they're actually full of a smaller portion.
Okay.
It's just your body getting used to it.
Yeah.
But I would say try and opt to have a side of vegetables or salady stuff with your meal. So, you know, a lot of people, if you're just having steak and chips, where's the green? There's no green parts of the meal. So having that is going to help you feel full because it's going to provide some bulk to your stomach. Generally, your stomach is about the size of, say, like 4 cups.
Okay.
So if you're eating vegetables and the side of vegetables is like 1 or 2 cups, equivalent in the portion size, you know, that's essentially going to fill you up quite a bit. It's going to help expand your stomach, let off those kind of stretch receptors as well, which is going to initiate you feeling full. The other thing that I would generally recommend, and this is what I see a lot from working with men that I know go to the pub, is a lot of men, actually it's not even men, it's like everyone does this.
Just people who go to the pub.
No, it's just people in general.
Just people.
Eat too fast.
And
so
I am guilty of that because you always tell me I eat too fast.
Definitely. Yeah. So it does take 20 minutes for your stomach to tell your brain it's hungry, to tell your brain it's full. So say, for example, you're eating a meal, you're finishing that meal in 10 minutes. Of course, you're going to be hungry. Yeah. And then you're going to be like, oh, what else can I eat? Can I get another side of chips? Can I do whatever you're going to do?
Enter the spring rolls.
Enter the dessert, things like that. And so what I would say is, you know, while you're trying to go for a smaller option, try and eat slowly. So eat, you know, allow 20 minutes essentially for that meal. So, you know, checking your watch to see what time it starts, or even you might even want to start off with just eating at your normal pace and actually seeing how fast you eat. Because a lot of people are really surprised.
I should do that because I don't think I have
finally you decide to do it.
Yeah, well, like, because I don't actually really notice because I
eat in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I don't notice it. I honestly, if you don't point it out, I will not notice how fast I eat.
And you know what that does to me? It makes me eat fast.
Yes, okay, everything's my fault. I get that. I don't notice.
No, but that's a really good point. If you're around people who are fast eaters, you naturally will eat faster as well.
Well, I just remembered then when I went out, obviously I didn't eat at the pub because like I guess it's different for me eating at the pub nowadays because like obviously
you just get chips.
Yeah, I just get chips and I eat those quick. But it's so true. Like I was sitting down with the boys and we were in and out of the restaurant in about 15 minutes. Like and when you think about it, fair play, we were keen to get to the pokies, but we eat collectively, we eat really fast, but I wouldn't notice that unless someone was a slow eater.
I know. We should probably take some tips off places like France. Like, I went to France last year and I was astounded about how they eat there. They all, like the entire country, gets 2 hours lunch break during the day.
Would be fantastic.
I know, wish I had that, but that's because they're so slow with eating and they have multiple courses, even at the schools. They have that because they have, you know, schools there where you're provided food and you get like a small entree of like some fruit and then you get your main meal and then your soup and then you get your dessert of a little bit of cheese. And, you know, in Australia, we're just like, nah, we're this fast food culture.
I think it's like that for everything we do. We drink fast. We drink a lot really fast. We eat a lot really fast. It's sort of like a cultural thing around that. You know what I mean? It's very odd. Like when you think about it, we do a lot of things like that, which is crazy.
Yeah. And so, and then I guess the other thing is, you know, thinking as well about like sauces is another option. So when things are drizzled with a lot of sauce, that really increases the calorie density or the energy density of that. So even asking for sauces on the side if you can.
And that's salad dressing as well.
Dressing as well. Like often if we look at purely calories, you know, the calories, which is if we think about basics of energy, our body's burning a certain amount of calories and our body's ingesting calories from our food. Sometimes the calories of the dressing is equivalent to the entire salad or even more than the entire salad itself. So I'd always say try opt for the salad, the dressing on the side. You should grab up Hog's Breath menu. I was there the other day.
Oh,
it is
we can do
so
that.
Interesting.
Is it interesting as in good or bad?
No, just interesting as, okay, what are some better options to have? So while Matson's grabbing this up, a quite a good thing to, I guess, learn or kind of understand, go to menu at the top.
I just clicked on menu.
Yeah.
This is it.
Oh, is it? Oh, no. I looked at this the other day. It was one of my patients.
So look at that.
There's a way you can look at the whole menu. Go down. Up. Here, stop. There you go. New full down. New menu.
Oh, excellent.
So before I go into this, though, I should probably just mention, when we think about food and when we think about energy, there's calories and there's kilojoules. So calories is just the measurement they use in America. Kilojoules is what we use in Australia. So the typical average person is 8,700 kilojoules a day in how much food they need. We find lots of different kilojoules in lots of different foods.
So differentiate between men and women?
Generally men, because you have a high muscle mass, and especially if you're quite active, you tend to have a higher metabolism than females do. Yeah. So remembering that kind of that 8,700, if you wanted to go down a bit, if you want to just go to burgers here. So if we look at some of the burgers, places like Hog's Breath, KFC, Macca's, Subway are quite useful in the fact that a lot of these big chain store restaurants have the amount of kilojoules on their menu. So that's something that's really, really useful to look at. A lot of your smaller chains don't, but if you can get a bit of an understanding as how many kilojoules of calories they have, that can be quite useful. So we can see here, the burgers vary quite a lot with, say, the whole hog there, burger is 5,000 kilojoules, and that's without the wedges and without the chips.
I think so. That's something that you don't really sort of add on, do you? Like, you see that and you assume, oh, that's it, but you don't think about it. And then also on top of that, I guess if you have a beer with that meal too, you're pushing that 8,000 sort of, that's your daily intake, isn't it?
In just the meal.
That's wild.
I know.
Fuck.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, I guess something that, is quite useful here, when you go to chicken with Parmigiana chicken, chicken Dijonnaise, Troppo chicken, you have the traditional or the light option at Hog's Breath. I don't know if everywhere else has this. I assume they don't. But there's quite a difference in kilojoules here. So, your traditional one has 4,213 kilojoules, whereas your light one has 2,918 kilojoules. So if you are kind of a bit more conscious about your health, weight, things like that, I would say opt for the smaller option as well. We can also see here the ribeye on the bone has 400 grams, has 4,258 kilojoules. Also $45.50. Jeez. And then the sirloin steak, the 200 gram one, only has 2,500. The point that I wanted to make though is, so I was there, I had the vegan burger, and what I thought was really interesting is the Veganlicious burger here has got about 3,400 kilojoules. Now, if we have a look at, the salad over here, this salad has about 4,700 kilojoules. So often people say, oh, I'm going to go for the salad. It's a healthier option. But it's so high in kilojoules.
So sometimes the salad's not the good option.
It's not necessarily. Okay. And same with say the crumb chicken and ranch salad.
Yeah.
There it's 4,100 kilojoules. So, there are the salad is not necessarily the better option.
I was actually just looking, the 300 gram rump steak, which is what sort of a standard meal, you could easily get a rump steak with a small side of chips, and it would be exactly the same as the salad, which we would assume the salad would be
the better. And this is what it brings us to another point, which is you have nutrient contents of food, and then you also have the calorie content. So for example, in a salad, there's probably more nutrients there, micronutrients like vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin B.
The sweet potato wedges are 18,000.
Yeah,
it's almost 2,000 just in itself.
Purely from that nutrient content perspective, the salad's going to have more nutrition, but likelihood because of, say, the dressing. So especially they've got ranch here. Those dressings, especially those creamy dressings, tend to have so much higher kilojoules as well. So it makes it really, really add up. So I would say if you are after a salad, go for at least have the dressings at the side as well. But, it's different from person to person as well. But, you see down the bottom here, you can also... this is a good example. So we looked at curly fries. So curly fries are 1,700 kilojoules. Sweet potatoes are 1,800. Mash is only 679. So you know how we said before, swapping the fries to the mash, you're literally... you could have 3 lots of mash for 1 serving of curly fries. And again, when we think about fullness, you're probably going to be just as full having the mash as you would be having the curly fries. Yeah. So I think, they've got the seasonal seasonal vegetables there as well.
See, I think that the sort of misconception that people get when you get this, the stereotypical healthy is that you don't have to give up the good food to get that same. So, like I said there, you could still get a rump steak, which would be your standard meal.
Yeah.
And it's less than the salad, which you would assume, if you didn't have good nutritional knowledge like myself, but you go salad, healthy or good, but realistically, you're not doing anything better for your body, are you?
Well, you are and you aren't. So the nutritional content, purely looking at micronutrients of salad would probably be a little bit better than having chips and steak. But the kilojoule content is higher because of the dressings.
Okay.
So this is where...
So they're the silent killer.
The silent killer, yeah. So I would say if you're looking at from purely, say, a weight perspective, so if you're trying to lose weight, I would say try and go for the one that's a bit lower kilojoules. But if you're looking at overall nutrition, I would say go for lower kilojoules, but also make sure you add some sort of vegetables there as well. So whether that be the seasonal vegetables, the steamed ones, even potato mash, like your salad stuff, like salad side dressing, because that's just going to have a little bit, it'll have lower kilojoules altogether when it doesn't have a dressing on it. But it's also going to provide you just a little bit more micronutrients. So that's good for you in terms of reducing your risk of heart disease, diabetes, chronic disease, things like that.
So a lot of... because you always say this, and I always hear you say this, swap it, don't stop it, that sort of mentality. You can swap elements, but you don't have to stop the steak and go for the salad. You can swap a couple different things, for example, the mash for the chips, or a side salad for the chips, or something
or
like that.
Your steamed veggies for the chips,
or even just slowing down eating. So aiming for that sort of realistically enjoying your meal for 20 minutes rather than scoffing it down and getting straight back to the tab.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing to think about is the fullness of things as well. We had a look at that salad, but you talked about fullness before being okay, if I have that, if you're I don't know if you would agree with this, but if I told a bloke who is a real steak and chips kind of guy to go eat a salad, and we've seen there that the salads are sometimes higher in calories, chances are they eat the salad, they're not going to be completely full. Yeah. So then they're likely going to eat more as well. So, I think it's probably better just to... I'm a big believer in just swapping small things in your diet. You don't have to completely change your entire diet to eat healthier. It's just swapping those small things there.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. I think that's kind of reassuring for a lot of people, because I think the idea of having to completely give up something, for example, I'm a vegan. I'm stereotyped to eat salad. I fucking hate salad. I hate salad. So finding that, instead of having the side salad, those steamed veggies are great. But, I think for me personally, I need to slow down with my eating, especially with chips. And I think the other thing with that is, drinking. If you're on a big sesh of drinking, you're going to get hungry. And
yes, that's another thing.
This is the danger. And I'm going to let you go into why drinking and eating at the same time probably isn't the best thing to do.
Yeah, well, when we think about so remembering that we talked about, say, 8,700 kilojoules is your daily intake. We worked out just before that, say, for example, if you had steak and chips, you might be maybe having 5,000, 6,000 kilojoules of that. And that's I don't know what the percentage is, but that's a considerable amount of your daily intake just in that one meal. And that's without the alcohol. And now alcohol, when we think about macronutrients, has got the highest kilojoule calorie density. So
just what's a macronutrient?
So I wish I could draw up on here. A little screen.
Well, a lot of people listen through audio.
Yeah,
so.
There we go. Yeah. So when we think about macronutrients, macronutrients is what provides us those kilojoules in food. So we've got those 4 main macronutrients. So firstly, we've got your proteins. Now, proteins we find in your meat, we find in chicken, fish, tofu, eggs, legumes like lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans. Really important for satiety, keeping us full. That has about 17 kilojoules per gram. So say if you took a gram of chicken, generally about 17 kilojoules per every gram there. Now we've got carbohydrates. So we find carbohydrates really important for energy in our potatoes, in our sweet potatoes, rice, pasta, breads. They also have about 17 kilojoules per gram. Then we have your fiber. So fiber, again, vegetables like we talked about. So for every gram of fiber, it's only about 8 kilojoules. So it's about half of the others. So really, really quite low. And then we have your fats. So we talked about fats being really high. So fats is the highest kilojoule or calorie density macronutrient. So it's got 37 kilojoules per gram. So it's like almost double protein and carbohydrates. So fats being like your avocado, your nuts and seeds, olive oil, oils in general, butter, margarine. And so for every gram of that, you're providing 37 kilojoules to your body. And then alcohol is the second highest in kilojoule density. So it's 29 kilojoules per gram.
Shit.
So that's pure alcohol. So one standard drink is equal to 10 grams of alcohol. So that's what one. So whenever you look at a beer or anything that says one standard drink, it's 10 grams of alcohol.
So that's not that's it for those, like that's just a pot. So a pot is a small glass, then you've got your schooner, then you get your pint. So
I don't know how many standard drinks are in each.
I think a pot's one standard drink.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then a schooner is, I think, I don't know the math.
I'm pretty sure in that photo I sent you.
Yeah, I was going to say, you did send me a photo.
Yeah. Okay, here. This is a really good example. Okay, so this talks about... well, no, it doesn't have schooner or pot or anything like that.
But, 285, one standard drink. I'm 90% sure 285 is a pot.
Okay. Yeah, so 285, so that's one standard drink. So that's going to provide you 460 kilojoules. So we talked about beer and light beer, actually, in terms of what's a better option.
Have we?
No, we said we were going to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So with light beer, so... for one standard drink of normal beer, it's 460 kilojoules. For one standard drink of light beer, so it's 480 kilojoules.
So it's mid-strength?
Light beer. I don't know what light beer is.
I'd say it's probably mid-strength beer.
Mid-strength beer?
Yeah, like half the alcohol content.
Yeah.
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 So it's
it would be, yeah.
So it's about 0.9 standard drinks. That's one standard drink.
One standard drink.
Okay.
Yeah. It depends on how much you're having.
So it's
right?
based on how much.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah. So if we look at one standard drink of your normal beer is 285 mils, well, one standard drink of light beer is 425 mils.
Okay.
So essentially, though, this is the thing where you're going, should I choose standard or should I choose light? It's depending on how much you're having. So the calories is going to be the same, because it's purely based on the alcohol content.
Yeah, so if you're choosing light beer because you want to drink more of it, it kind of defeats the purpose.
It defeats the purpose, yeah. So if you... I'd always say how much you need to get drunk, right? Yeah. So if you say for example, you need one standard drink to get drunk, you're just going to be drinking 285 mils of normal beer or 425 mils of light beer. You just get more, the quantity is just more. Yeah. So if you're just trying to cut down on your quantity of beer... purely, then I'd say, the light beer is a little bit better option, because it's going to be for the same amount of normal beer. So for the same mils, it's going to be lower kilojoules, but it's not necessarily if we're just comparing a standard drink to standard drink, it's actually the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It's a little bit complicated in that I think there's so many measurements, you got to look at the mils, then how many standard drinks, then the kilojoules in that, and then you throw there's obviously you got the different sizes in. Mm-hmm. I think it's tough because I know, for example, if I want a healthier option, I'll go, or if I am wanting to drive, I will have a light beer, right? Yeah. But the downside to having that light beer is I can drink slightly more of it. And you can see there, one standard drink of light beer is 480 kilojoules, whereas one standard drink of a normal beer, a pot, which is 285, is 460.
Which is not really that much difference.
Not different?
No, 20 kilojoules is nothing.
It is
yeah,
nothing.
It's
okay.
nothing. But
see, I didn't know that. That's something I thought that was a little bit bigger than
So that's generally the difference between an apple, a small apple, and a big apple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Didn't know that.
But if we look at spirits, so spirits I would always say generally be the lowest amount of kilojoules as any alcohol goes, because it's the highest kind of pure alcohol content. So a standard shot of spirits, so whenever you go get a rum or a bourbon or vodka, it's always going to be 30 mils in a shot. So that's what they always measure out. So that's going to be generally at the 276 kilojoule option. So that's quite low. But what's important to note is what you're adding into it as well.
Yeah, okay.
So like if you're having spirit with, say, if you're having vodka soda's got no kilojoules in it, so it's straight that 276. Okay. But say if you're doing rum and full strength Coke, that's going to add a whole lot more kilojoules to that as well. So you're probably, if you're again thinking about health, weight, things like that, you're probably better going for the, say, Diet Coke option if you can.
So is there a difference between, like a good amount of difference between Coke Zero, Diet? Huge. So that is true.
Yeah, that is 100% true. Yeah.
Okay.
So when we think about weight in general, it's all about eating more kilojoules than your body needs, right? And so if you're having, say, you know, I can't remember off the top of my head how many kilojoules are in a can of Coke. I think it's about say 250 calories, which is, let's say, like, you're not going to be drinking the whole can though. Say if you drink half a can, right?
Yeah.
So that's about 500. So that's about 500 extra kilojoules to that.
So that turns into a 700.
About 700 kilojoule drink.
Shit. Yeah. That is so much.
Yeah. And so that's just one drink.
And I was going to say, man, if I was at the boundary.
If we think about this, sorry.
Yeah. No, go for it.
Say if you had 10 drinks that night,
I was about to say, I usually would have 10 of those in a night.
That's 7,000 kilojoules. And remember we talked about your daily intake is, say, 8,700? That's 7,000 just purely from alcohol.
Empty calories because you don't feel full.
No.
Like, you're not full after.
And then you're going to have your Macca's burger after that, or your pub meal, or whatever it is.
I'll eat a full fucking piece of. Now that I'm thinking about it, dude, how bad were those VCRs I used to drink? That's red cordial, a shot of red cordial, Coke, and holy shit,
they add up really fast.
So that's why I probably got so fat when I was 18. I just kept drinking
alcohol.
VCRs.
I guess alcohol affects you in a couple of different ways. You know, it definitely makes you more hungry. 100%.
Yeah.
Like
so it does make it is.
Yeah, and your body, it's a toxin to your body, so your body needs to spend so much time, and your liver just processing it out of your body.
I was gonna say,
and it's not going to prioritize processing the nutrients. It's going to prioritize processing the alcohol.
So getting it out of your system.
The system. So what you're eating is generally way above, you know.
Yeah. So back to, I guess, the primary point, like how much, if you are having that double Big Mac meal, like you saw me last night, I pounded down 2 Rebel Whoppers without even blinking. Like I smashed them. I could do that drunk. That's so many kilojoules. Now, what happens? So, because your body's processing that alcohol, that late night, like sort of hangover meal, like how bad is that for you?
Oh, like it's not great for you, no. So generally wouldn't say try not to do that on a regular basis. Yeah. Try to just focus on having like when you're late night eating, you're probably not going to make the best choices ever. Yeah. I just really try and stick with the water where you can as well.
So just sort of like try to avoid. Is it real hunger when you get that alcohol hunger? Is it really? Not really. It's not really real hunger. Because
who wakes up at 1 a.m. or 3 a.m. to eat?
So true.
Yeah.
Do you here's a question that I would like to know, because there's a couple different differentiating opinions. I'd like to get yours on it because we haven't spoken about this even just casually. Eating before bed, like just whether it be on a night out or just in general, is it bad for you? Like, what's the go with that? Because I've heard so many different things of it doesn't affect you, it does affect you. Like, what's your sort of take on it?
Well, I guess you'd have to define what's bad.
Okay.
Does bad refer to weight gain? Does bad refer to ability for your body to absorb nutrients? Does bad affect your sleep? So if you're
just talk weight loss, in terms of weight loss,
I'll talk about a couple of them.
Okay.
So if we're looking at it purely from a sleep perspective, yes, if you're eating late at night, it can disrupt your sleep a little bit. In some people, not everyone though. You know, like I can eat late at night and it won't interrupt my sleep. I'm pretty sure you can as well.
Yeah, well, I had Whoppers last night and I had a nightmare. So I don't know if that was to do with the food or...
But say, for example, someone who's experiencing reflux, right?
Okay.
They are going to go to bed and they're going to get massive reflux if they've just eaten before bed. So I'd say if that's you, generally keep a couple of hours before going to bed. In terms of digestion, it doesn't really affect your digestion. Your body's going to absorb nutrients exactly the same time of day, no matter when you have it.
I think that was one of the myths, that it affects your digestion or you're digesting slower. I've heard some, like listening, I know you love this, but whenever Joe Rogan talks about nutrition, you sort of groan and complain. But one of the things was even laying down while you're digesting food affects it. I think it's bullshit. Is it?
Your body goes into like a rest and digest mode anyway, like when
Yeah,
you're like
okay.
sleeping.
So it is
you know?
bullshit.
So it's kind of bullshit, yeah. But I guess if we think about, say, one of the reasons this comes up is because of intermittent fasting. Okay. So when we think about intermittent fasting, do you know much about intermittent fasting? I'll explain it for everyone else.
I do. If you listen to Joe Rogan, which I do, you'll know about fasting.
So what intermittent fasting is essentially, as humans, right, we tend to just eat whenever during the day.
Intuitively. Is that what it is called? Intuitively?
No. Oh, well, I wouldn't say most people are intuitive eaters. Okay. They might be, but they like we just so we just eat whenever we eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, etc. Yeah. What intermittent fasting is setting schedules for your time to eat. So for example, instead of eating at breakfast, you might have, say, an 8-hour fast. So instead of eating breakfast, morning tea, you might only eat between 12 and 8 p.m. with the idea of that being, fasting is creating all these amazing health benefits and helping you with weight loss. Now, what the thing with intermittent fasting and why it's kind of, it's not actually a miracle cure for weight loss is when you're cutting out breakfast from your day and you're only eating lunch and dinner, of course you're going to lose weight if your meals at lunch and dinner stay the same size because you're eating less kilojoules overall. And so when we're eating less kilojoules overall, we're going to naturally lose weight. Yeah. So in terms of setting, like how that kind of comes in, eating late at night, no, it's not really going to contribute directly to weight gain. But like if you're eating more than your body needs to at night, then yes, it will generally contribute to weight gain. So it's not ever any specific time of day that you're eating that's directly going to contribute to weight gain. It's more if you're eating more overall. Yeah. Does that kind of make sense?
No, I get it. So overall, it doesn't matter when you really eat. It's just about a whole day. How many kilojoules are you intake?
Exactly. And like this is a point though that I generally say you're just a normal person eating breakfast, lunch, dinner, maybe a couple of snacks during the day, and you're staying awake really late at night. If you stay awake really late at night, you generally get a bit bored and you get kind of a bit of fake hunger as well.
I do that. 10:30 rolls around, I'm looking for snacks.
You're looking for snacks and you're not probably hungry. If you're asleep, you wouldn't be eating. Yeah. And that's where the extra energy and extra kilojoules can come from that your body doesn't really need because it should actually be sleeping. Okay. So when you're awake longer than you really need to, you'll generally eat more than you actually need to. Yeah. So I would say you don't need to not eating after 7 is going to cause weight gain is completely a myth. Okay. It's not that.
So it's got nothing to do with sleep.
It's not, it's more so, it's nothing to do with, you don't have to stop eating by a specific time. But overall, generally, if you are snacking later at night and you've already eaten your entire day's intake during the day, that can cause weight gain. Yeah. So I would say it's I generally say rule of thumb that can be useful for most people is try and eat within generally a 12-hour window. So if you're starting breakfast at 7 a.m., generally eat until you're about 7 p.m. It's not going to work for everyone, especially shift workers. But, that can generally give you a bit of a guide as to, that you got 12 hours to eat and 12 hours for your body to digest because your body does need time to fast overnight. Yeah. That's why we have breakfast, break, fast, right?
Get that. You see what they've done there? Yeah. It's very intelligent.
Yeah. So no, eating too late at night is not an issue. Yeah. But if it means that you're staying awake later, you're snacking on not the best foods, you're not eating like your whole foods like your lunch and dinner, or you're not eating just enough for dinner, then I'd say it's probably not the best option.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so, that's interesting because I feel like that's one thing that everybody collectively, whether like you yourself or a dietitian, I've seen you walk home with a slice of pizza after a night out.
Pizza?
Stuff.
Really?
Maybe it was a pizza?
No.
Like chips?
Pizza is not my
You usually get poutine from Five Dogs.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But I feel like it's just like a natural thing, that kebab.
But it's not something that you need. No. Like generally.
It's more comfort eating, isn't it?
You want to go home. Go to bed to reduce your hangover. Go to bed, drink a liter of water and have some Hydrolyte. Yeah. And that's like a lot of the hangover is to do with dehydration. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it's so funny that sort of we're just accustomed to that late night drinking meal. And you don't really some of the meals that I've had that late at night after a big I would love to have sort of a calorie counter on, say if I went out, for example, because like I'll have like I'll go out at like 3 p.m. and I'll probably drink at a pub, then go out, then eat, and I'll have meals at the pub. I would love to get a calorie counter on, or just a kilojoule counter for how much I intake over a big session.
And
Because
to
I
be
reckon
fair,
I've done huge amounts.
you could, to be fair, and I generally don't say this to everyone, but it's just because I know exactly what your schedule is like. You could get away with it because you are so active. You do like 2,000 steps a day and 20,000 steps a day, and you exercise multiple times a week. So overall, it's not so much what you do on one night that affects your weight. It's what you do across on average the entire week. But what I would generally say is, you know, if you're a person who's really, really sedentary and you eat out or you do that sort of stuff, you eat and drink multiple times a week, that can lead to really, really quick weight gain.
Yeah. So again, moderation.
Moderation is always key.
Moderation is key.
And that's the thing, you know, if you're trying to be healthier, don't go on fad diets, don't go on quick fixes, they never work. You want to do stuff that's sustainable. So if it just means changing your steak and chips to like grilled chicken and some mashed potato and veg, you know, one of your 3 meals that you're eating at the pub a week, that is progress. You know, that's a good choice. But if there's times that you just really, really feel like a steak, that's fine. Go choose a steak. Maybe you don't always have to choose the 400 gram option. Maybe choose the 200 gram or 300 gram option. Yeah. You know, it's all about just making those small changes so that, you know, in 6 months' time, you're like, oh, I can't even remember I did that. And so those are the things that add up. Yeah.
So small lifestyle changes rather than you know, huge drastic things. So on that sort of stuff, like obviously a big thing, and I think it's great that they're coming out with it, obviously, because I guess it's really weird for men, but things like the man shake, like how much... I saw you do a little face thing. So the man shake, what's sort of your, like, obviously tailored towards men, obviously tailored towards older, huskier blokes. Like, what's your sort of opinions on the man shake sort of as a meal replacement
I think
supplement?
they've done really well on their marketing.
They have. Their marketing is second to none.
Because if we think about, say, like Slim and Trim, which is their brand that of meal replacement shakes at Aldi, I don't know how many men are going to be like, oh, I want to pick up Slim and Trim. Like, it's not sold to men, right?
Do they technically do the same thing?
They're pretty much exactly the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, like if you're choosing like woman shake, man shake, Slim and Trim, or any of those meal replacement brands, it is literally the same thing you're paying for marketing. Okay. Like there are, like, look, to be fair, like the nutrition's going to be slightly different. They're different products, but it is in terms of what they do to your body and in terms of how they work. The differences are quite negligible. Yeah. Like I would say if you're using them for weight loss, like they're pretty much exactly the same. Yeah. What I would generally say, if you are wanting to kind of incorporate them into your diet, if you're a man and you had 3 of those a day, you would get fast weight loss for a short amount of time. It'd come back pretty fast because that is not nearly enough kilojoules that your body needs every day. I do think it is worthwhile if you have it, like maybe replace max 1 meal a day. Yeah. But again, individual advice, go speak to a dietitian. But it creates such a huge calorie deficit or kilojoule deficit from what you need in that meal that it's often not sustainable long term to use. But look, it's easy, right? You just grab it and you go. So, you know, it can be quite useful. But I would say, like, you know, like I always talk about is you got to make sustainable changes. Small changes. You, like, a lot of people get angry at themselves because they don't go on these shake diets and then they lose, you know, 7 kilos in a week, which is just water weight, by the way. It's not actual weight loss. Manage to stay on it for 4 weeks, say they lose 15 kilos in a month. Ridiculous, but like that's way too much. You don't need to lose that much in a month. 4 kilos a month is good. But say they lost 15 kilos in a month and then something happened. They had a friend's mate's birthday, had a big weekend, and then they, you know, fell off the bandwagon, and then they're negatively beating themselves up in their mind about, you know, oh, I'm such a failure, why couldn't I just stick to it, when it's not their fault, it's the diet's fault. You know, the diet was not sustainable for them in the first place. So the thing is, whenever you're trying to lose weight, you want to do it slow changes, you want to do it sustainably because you want to be able to keep it off. And so sometimes those man shakes can be useful, but it's not really real food, right? I would just say say, what can you change for your breakfast? So say, for example, if you're again going to Macca's drive-through every morning for breakfast to get a bacon and egg roll, maybe just waking up slightly earlier, even having Wheat Bix or like rolled oats or porridge or something like that. That would be a better option. And then just really focusing on that for even if it's a month, really focusing on that, and then adding another thing once it's become a habit. Because, you know, you can do the slim and trim and that's the man shake for a bit, but then chances are you're probably going to just end up resulting back to.
So you're probably better off doing just those small even though you don't see results directly straight away. It's long term. You got to be you got to wait for it.
You got to wait for it. Yeah.
Okay. I like that, because I think a lot of people get mixed up with dieting, and I think the hardest thing now is obviously social media and seeing like the marketing, like, you know, you mentioned that you pay for marketing, like, and that's such a fair point. Like you see Man Shake, you see like all the sort of ex-footy players on it and all that sort of stuff, and all of a sudden you think it's the way to go, when realistically changing your chips for mash is probably going to be more beneficial to you in the long run.
Yeah, you always got to ask yourself, if you're trying something new, can I stick with this for the rest of my life? If you can't, then like it's probably not going to be the best long-term option. Yeah.
So that's so do you think that's a question that you should, if you're willing to, or if you're starting to do sort of one of those diets, do you think that's a question you really should ask yourself?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. Especially I'd say a big red flag is, you know, if there's diets that you have to put a whole lot of money behind starting them or investing in some sort of product, which is a weight loss product, it's probably not going to be like, it's the company doesn't have your best interest at heart. It has you know, its bank account at heart. And I think the thing as well, like we talked about marketing, is it doesn't matter if like they're at pretty much every chemist. So it doesn't matter if you're a chemist or if you're at Woolworths or Coles or anything. There is thousands and even millions of dollars that goes behind marketing budgets to get those products on the shelf. Yeah. You know, if you or me just started a product and say created this weight loss shake, we're not going to be able to get it onto Woolworths shelves. That is going to be a very hard task to achieve.
So it needs money.
So it needs money. So whenever anything's on the supermarket shelf, there is so much money behind it, making you as a consumer go, oh, that looks really nice, I should try that.
Especially at a chemist. Your first thought at a chemist is, it's got to be healthy. It's at a chemist.
Yeah.
You know, like I had this belief as a child that the glucose jelly beans at a chemist were better for you than other jelly beans.
Yeah.
And when really they're fucking jelly beans.
Yes, because they're for diabetics. They're not for the day-to-day person.
They're for me.
Yeah, they're not for you. Yeah.
Oh man, interesting. Far out. There's a lot of. I think diet's a weird sort of area. Hey, like.
Yeah, and there's so many new ones these days. Like everyone's on keto these days,
carnivore,
or like carnivore diets.
Even vegan. Those hectic bloody. What are they called? Fuck that freely fucking
raw
like vegan diets. Bloody this and that. I guess one thing I like about you is you're very much like, just do what is going to work best for you.
Do what's going to work best. And there is no studies that show what is the perfect human diet for human health. I was listening to a really interesting reading a really interesting article the other day. It talks about, to actually find out what the perfect diet for human health is, you would have to get 50,000 pregnant women, randomize them into different categories of different diets. Then from the get-go, those kids, once born, would have to go on those diets. So one kid would have to be vegan, one thing would keto, one thing would be Mediterranean, another one would be low carb, and they would have to go on their entire life. And that is just not plausible. No. You just can't get that research. And this is the thing with diets, is there's never enough research.
Yeah.
Because you just can't have it. It's more, retrospective research. This group of Seventh-day Adventists have been on vegetarian diets their entire lives because that's a religion, etc. So in terms of what we do know, though, the overwhelming amount of evidence is, if you focus on your diet as whole foods, so not processed Macca's stuff, whole foods, minimally processed, mostly plant-based foods, that's the aim. You don't have to go vegan, you don't have to go vegetarian. You just have to have the majority of your diet as plants.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a bit of a luxury for some people. You know, not everyone is able to eat a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits and things like that, whole grains, lentils, legumes. But if you focus on your diet from mostly those foods, you're going to get the most amount of health benefits.
Yeah, so plant-based in itself, it doesn't necessarily mean vegan, does it? It just means you're eating lots of
Mostly
vegetables.
plants.
Because I think a lot of people hear plant-based and their first thoughts are vegan. Like, you know what I mean? Like vegan, like plant-based.
Well, vegan
doesn't
is
really...
a type of plant-based,
Yeah.
but to be plant-based just means, and this is my definition, because there's no formal definition. My definition for plant-based is eating the majority of your diet from plants.
Yeah.
You know, and like this is the thing, we grow up having meat as the center of our plate, where, you know, you can eat meat, that's fine, but you want to be actually having vegetables as the center of your plate, so at least half of your plate vegetables, and then maybe a small palm size or less of meat.
Yeah.
And have more plant-based meals throughout the week.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. We asked a question on well, we didn't ask a question. We asked if there were any questions on your Instagram. Have you had any come in?
Is low carb beer better for you?
Is it?
Well,
that's a good question.
Low carb beer better for you. It's more so like we talked about just before with the light beer. Yeah. It's not really any difference in.
Yeah.
It's like in
so
terms
low
of
carb full strength. Like there's so Pure Blonde, for example.
It's more in marketing gimmick. It's not going to be any benefit more beneficial for you. You know.
So it's not going to make you skinny.
No, it's not going to make you skinny because at the end of the day, for the majority of the calories is coming from, or kilojoules is coming from the alcohol.
Okay.
So low carb, normal carb, it's not going to be huge amounts of difference there.
Yeah. So so we could probably put a stamp on that it's not going to give you too much difference.
It's not going to give you too much more benefit.
So you don't have to drink low carb. Drink the beer that you love.
Drink the beer that you like in moderation. Like the Australian guidelines for alcohol consumption is generally aiming for, like, if you're drinking on a regular basis, 2 standard drinks and no more than 4 standard drinks at anyone, like at like an event or an occasion.
Yeah, right.
And try to have quite a few alcohol, like 2 alcohol-free days a week.
4 standard drinks. 4 standard drinks in one sitting. That's not fun.
No. And the thing about 4 standard drinks, that's 4 standard drinks,
yeah,
right?
so not even schooners.
So if you're having a schooner, it's 1.5 standard drinks. You can have like 2.5 schooners and you're done.
Yeah, sick. That's not fun at all.
Australians overall drink a lot. We know that alcohol is linked with liver disease, things like that. And, you know, if tied into a poor diet, generally, you know, links with chronic disease long term. I would always say, you know, we want to enjoy our lives as well. Just if you are someone that drinks really, really regularly, just start off by trying to decrease the frequency that you're having. So if you're drinking 7 days a week, even if you start with having, say if you drink 7 days a week and you drink 10 beers every day, and like I have patients that do that, that's 70 beers a week. If you even have 1 alcohol-free day, that's reducing 10 beers. So that's going to 60. Then maybe have 2 alcohol-free weeks, you know, or even like if you say, instead of doing, you know, 10 beers a week, do 9 beers a week, you know, whatever works for you. But again, you have to be realistic long term.
Small changes.
You know, small changes. But alcohol does really affect a lot of areas of your body. So, you know, we do want to have that balance.
So enjoy the pub responsibly.
Enjoy the pub responsibly as well.
But do enjoy it.
Yeah.
Do enjoy it. I think it's a really important part of especially male life.
Yeah,
you know.
and even like, you know, there's other strategies that you can use to reduce your alcohol consumption. So things like, you know, having water in between every beer can help you. If you try to drink a little bit slower, we talked about eating slower, drinking slower is another good one as well. Noticing some of your habits as well. So for example, like if you get home, as soon as you get home, you just grab a beer out of the fridge. What can you do to change that routine? Can you maybe go for a walk straight as you get home to calm you down or chill out? Maybe finding some other activities that provide you that same relaxation that alcohol does. But yeah, it comes back to, you know, just making those small changes and doing it real, like you want to be able to do it long term.
Cool. Lovely. KP, Plant Based Dietitian. We've been going for an hour.
Okay, cool.
I'm sure you have plenty of stuff to do on your brand new iPad that you got yesterday that you've been eyeing the whole time. That the fact that it's still here is hilarious. Thanks so much for coming on. I feel like this is one of those things with the pubs sort of opening up again. I think more people are keen to get out there and start drinking. I think with the excitement that comes with the pubs opening, sort of like a interesting thing. I mean, like I live with you, for example, and there's things that I just sort of learned then. So I'm hoping that people can sort of learn one thing, that you don't have to change your entire life. Like you don't have to always just opt for the salad instead of the steak. But also
swap from chips to mash.
Yeah, chips to mash. That's the best thing about it. Low carb beer. Just drink the beer that you like, I guess, and just be careful. Don't drink too much. Thank you very much. Where can people find you, Kiah Paetz?
So I'm sure, I don't know how many of your followers are vegan, but I do specialize in vegan, vegetarian diet. So I am on Instagram at the Plant Based Dietitian. I would mention though that my big motto with practice is I never convert anyone to go vegan unless they want to. It's more so small changes that people can do and are achievable, and eating more vegetables in general, which I'm very passionate about. So at the plant-based_dietitian on Instagram, or you can follow us on Facebook at Plant Nutrition Wellness, or our website is plantnutritionwellness.com.
Nice. Lovely. Excellent, girl. Fantastic. Guys, it's the Inner City Hermit podcast, giving you everything from music to diet to everything else. You know the drill, guys. If you love the content, go subscribe everywhere that you can, and go over to socials at Inner City Hermit. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much, Kiah Paetz, for jumping on. You're a legend.
Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, guys, have a great day. Have a great week. Have a great everything. Bye.